Hey folks, and welcome to the podcast. My name is Craig Hawkinson with CumberlandValleyTV.com, and today we're going to be discussing a very serious issue in the community, which is homelessness. And more specifically, we're going to be talking about an agency dedicated to helping solve this serious problem, and that is Community Cares. And to tell us more about that is my good friend Beth Kempf, who is the director of Community Cares. Beth, thank you so much for joining us, and I'm glad your schedule was finally able to permit you to be here.
Yes,
thank you. It's really a pleasure to learn more about this problem. Maybe you could start, let's just dive in, and maybe you can kind of start off by telling us why is Community Cares here?
Yeah, well, good question. So Community Cares it started out in about 2004, so we're about 15 years old. And back then, it was noted through the community that there were a handful of gentlemen that was visible for people to see, sleeping even in the wintertime on stoops in businesses and courtyards of churches. And so a local church decided to kind of open their doors and start a cold weather shelter, they would call it. So during the cold months, they allowed them to come and stay there. And awareness of it grew, and concern for people in that circumstance grew. And before long, it was like 3-4 churches involved, rotating. The numbers started to grow. It was predominantly men, because back then, that is the majority of the people that were homeless, or that was people were aware of being homeless. And as the years went on, it became pretty quickly evident that, some case management, some social work would be good to help people kind of transition, and it'd be great for them to have somewhere to be during the day. And so 2010, we opened our day center, or resource center we call it. And it started with, again, the intention of having 15, 20 maybe max people, which was a significant number from 2004, but still relatively manageable. So 3,600 square feet, and offices and kitchen and laundry facility, showers, a place people could eat, could prepare their food, could just have a bit of rest and meet with community leaders and meet with their caseworkers there. So there was a lot of trainings that went on during that time, but our population instantly grew, where we were gaining a certain amount of funding to put families in hotels. That funding ceased to exist. And right around the same time the Resource Center opened up, everybody came and used the day center. And here we are now, several years down the road from that, and we have now upwards of 70 men, women, and children that stay at a location, which we rotate every month. We utilize 14 different locations throughout our area, the furthest being Plainfield and Bowling Springs. And then we're also all over Carlisle. Some churches we classify as walking churches, and so about in the evenings they would go to the church, and some we transport ourselves to the locations because of the distance.
So in the day center, no one stays there overnight. That's just kind of so they have access to maybe a computer to search for a job or something like that. Am I on the right track? Okay,
yeah, so we have, so the day center, we open from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. And we have limited service time in the building per se. So one of the things we try and help people with is to be able to navigate and afford to move out of their homeless circumstance. And so we partner with many agencies in our community, one being the Salvation Army. And through a voucher we're able to provide to people staying in our shelter, they're able to get a free breakfast at the Salvation Army every morning. So our resource center, we actually close at 8:15 as a way of encouraging everybody to utilize that service. So we close for an hour to all residents. And then again in the evening at 4:30 we close again, because Salvation Army again provides a dinner. This is Monday through Friday. On the weekends they provide a lunch on Saturday and a dinner on Sunday. So at least there is a place that everyone can go and get a good meal without having to put out expense. And there's several other churches in our community, St. Paul's Lutheran, Shiloh Baptist, New Life Ministry, on North Street. They provide breakfast on Sundays. So we have several churches that also provide a meal to the community. Not solely our residents; it's open to the community, and it's just a great way for the community to kind of come together and mix it up a little bit. So that's very helpful.
So, where do they sleep? Basically, someone who are they a lot of them on park benches and stuff, or do a lot of them sleep in the churches that are offering that? But do we still have a segment of the population that's sleeping outside?
We absolutely do. So we provide our service, and so we are whoever can come, so we have a little bit of vetting that we do before someone can come in. So we, because of our makeup, men, women, and children, if someone's on Megan's Law, they wouldn't be able to come. If they have extreme violent crimes against children, unfortunately, we have to limit those people from our shelter. Not to say that if they're not in our shelter, that's what's happening with them, but that's some people that we're just not unable to help. Besides that, other reasons that people often will not come to shelter, or maybe they've been to shelter. They start to feel the anxiety and the press of the crowd. It can be a little much for people. Maybe they're not used to screaming children, maybe the constant being told when they can come in, when they can leave, that can get a little old for people. Maybe they think they can kind of do it on their own, and they find themselves that it wasn't as easy as they thought, and they feel like they can't return. So some of those reasons are why people do not come. Sometimes they have certain behaviors, whether it be substance or other behaviors that maybe would keep them from coming in because they just don't think they would be accepted. But our intention is to work with anyone that is interested in moving out of that circumstance. So every day we come alongside of all of our residents, and we create a plan with them, because we believe that housing first is the approach. No matter what people are dealing with, if we can get them housed first and then have them gain the supports that they need, we feel like that is a wiser approach, a way that they can because the reality is, if we say you have to be completely whatever we say the standard is before we'll even work with you, well, that could take a long time, or turn a lot of other people away because it's just too much. Right. And it's not our right to tell them they have to be a certain way in order to be housed. So we work with them to understand the processes. Maybe some people have never even rented their own property before. So we work with the housing authority, and they have a housing prep class. So we encourage people to go to that class. Maybe they've had some, credit issues, or they've never had a bank account. So we work with, we have a partnership with F&M Bank, and they come in and do a financial literacy class, and then they'll work with them one-on-one. Additionally, we work with programs like Maranatha, who will come and be someone's rep payee if necessary.
Yeah, I know Matthew from Maranatha.
Yeah.
Great guy, yeah.
Absolutely, and they do wonderful things. They're very helpful because, unfortunately, many of people that will come through our doors are on some measure of disability. Yeah. And around $700 a month is what they're bringing in.
What really got my attention is when you mentioned to me what the percentage of the homeless were children. Mm-hmm. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because that's really shocking. We have seen a dramatic increase of families and children coming into shelter. And most recently, we've been, I think, inundated with the calls and requests from people, and coming in with multiple children. And just the other week, we were up to 27 children in our program, as young as 6 months, as old as 17, many of them going to schools. And that is a tragedy and traumatic for everybody involved. It is. So the second we get connected with a family, the first thing we want to do is get an assessment. And are the kids in school? Yeah. Do they have a connection? We reach out to the homeless liaison in the school district that they were a part of.
And because
it's sad that there has to be a homeless liaison to the school.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes, and schools bear a lot of the burden for homelessness. They see a lot of it before it ever even comes to our door. They're aware of a lot of families that are on the edge of homelessness or actively homeless, and they're working to support them from their position. And because of McKinney-Vento Act, the school district the child came from is required to transport that child back to that school. So if they came from Mechanicsburg, for instance, and they come to the shelter because they have nowhere to stay, Mechanicsburg will arrange to transport that child back to their school so the child has something that's stable for them, something that they're familiar with.
A little routine in their life.
Absolutely.
That kind of brings me to the next thing I wanted to talk about is, we kind of touched on a lot of these people that they might have mental illness problems or drug and alcohol abuse problems. However, you've told me a story about some people that it's just circumstance. Like I think a woman who had gotten a divorce, who was leading a perfectly normal middle class life, and all of a sudden it's all gone.
Absolutely.
Could you touch on that a little bit? Or?
So the reality for many people is it's not going to happen to me. Many of us think that now, it couldn't happen to me, but the reality is a large majority of our country is living paycheck to paycheck. And even if you're not, you have a dependency, as we all do, on our family. But what happens when that suddenly crumbles? And so this mom, she raised her kids, and it was the family decision that she wasn't going to work. She was going to raise the kids and take care of the household and invest her time and energies into her family. And so that was what she did for 20 plus years. And suddenly, when her last daughter went off to college, the reality was her husband had been having an affair and had said, okay, well, I want to be with this woman. What do? You put your whole life stock and barrel into this relationship, this person. And so this mom was so shocked and so, in a way, proud. She was like, I'm not going to put this on my children. This is my burden to bear. So when she couldn't muster up the resources, she had no vehicle, she got nothing, she came to CARES. And
man, she needed a better lawyer, it sounds like.
I'm not really sure how it all worked out, but what a very humble and contrite way to be. I say to people oftentimes that, this is an extreme crisis that anyone is in.
It could happen to anybody, I can see that. And, sometimes I'll walk by someone with a "will work for food" sign or something. The thought that goes through your mind is, oh man, get it together. Well, some of these people had it together, and just medical expenses from a problem they might have had. A lot of people are still suffering from the 2007-2008 crash.
Absolutely.
A lot of people lost everything, and they're still trying to recover from that. So, I try not to cast any stones anymore, as far as realizing that.
And sometimes they do bring in an income, but they don't bring in enough to afford housing. They don't bring in enough to find even a one-bedroom somewhere in our community that they could possibly afford. And that's why I say with those that are on disability, there's no one bedroom that they can afford in our community.
And that's something you were helping with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So talk about like a medical situation. We had a gentleman come to us, 60 years old, still pretty young, worked his whole work career in the warehouses, making an okay pay, living by himself, living, month to month. And suddenly not so suddenly, but the reality came that he needed his hip replaced. He could no longer do his job. Right. And then he can't work. And then guess what? If you don't work, you don't make money and you don't pay your bills, you don't get to live in your house, So his apartment, he was not able to keep. So he came to us. And this is what sometimes is called like a wicked problem. It's a problem on top of a problem on top of a problem. Yeah. So this gentleman did not want charity. I don't want charity. But he didn't have any other place to go. So he comes to us and we start working with him, and then we found more problems on top of it. So he needed the surgery. And he actually could get it. However, He had he had an abscess tooth, and you can't get a surgery without that. He smoked cigarettes, and you can't get surgery without that. So within a month's time, he had quit smoking cigarettes. We were able to connect with a great oral surgeon in our area, and he was willing to extract the tooth for free. So we did the things that were given hurdles to us, and then we get to the place they say, oh, but he's homeless. He's still not a candidate to get the surgery because he has no way to take care of himself. So I'm really proud of our team, because then we just go and we advocate for people, and we call everyone we can think of and connect with everything we can. We reached out to several rehabs, like, listen, would you rehab him longer? Would you do this so he has a chance? And it's a sad reality that we have to fight that hard, but he would have easily been someone that began to self-medicate. Because how long can you withstand such a level of pain and have no direction to go? Yeah. And so sometimes things just fall completely apart.
So you start drinking a little alcohol or whatever to forget
Mask
about
the
your
pain.
problem, right?
And sometimes those things happen. Now, this gentleman, he's getting out of rehab. He's still with a cane, but he is ready to go back to work. And I have no doubt in a month's time we're going to be able to get him into his own place.
Well, our thoughts will be with him. So
absolutely.
Hopefully, I hope things kind of worked out for the woman you were talking about.
They
too.
did. This
Good.
woman was amazing. So she came there and was determined, and she hadn't really held a job in a long time, and she got a job, and it didn't take long before they noticed leadership in her, and she quickly moved into a supervisor position. She finally confessed to her daughters what was going on. They were able to put together some dollars so she could get a car, because that's
great.
also a huge barrier for people. This area doesn't have great public transportation.
There has no public
And so she was able then to work as many hours as she could, and she was not with us for a long time before she was able to get into her own apartment.
No,
she was
great.
able to transition into an organization that we also partner with, which is another shelter called Safe Harbor. Mm-hmm. And so she was able to transition there and get an apartment of her own there as well. She is absolutely an example of someone who did not let her circumstance define her, but instead defined her circumstance as something she was going to come out better, stronger, and more wise than she walked into it.
It's so great you've got those success stories that to point to,
Mm-hmm.
To help. And I sure hope that people watching this will realize that you are changing lives, and people are getting it together with your help. And if someone wanted to donate to your cause, what's the best way to do that?
The best way, there's so many ways. Monetarily, of course, you can go to our website, www.morethanshelter.org.
And I'll make sure that's, at least
Absolutely.
for the people watching this on a video service like YouTube, I'll be sure and key that. So.
Absolutely. And you can also obviously always call in 717-249-1009. And you can also go to our website, and you can see our most up-to-date needs list if you want to give like physical donations. We always need like household goods. We always need to keep undergarments for all ages and shape people. You'll be surprised how many people walk in our doors with only the clothes on their back, and they really need a shower, so we need to have something quickly at hand to be able to get that for them. We also take donations of people's talents and skills. So volunteers is really the backbone of who we are. They help us with the overnight. They help us with the day center. They provide meals to just make a nice, warm environment for everyone. Or they'll bring their artistic flair and do an art class with someone, sometimes just to kind of break up the monotony and the extreme nature of what's happening. We also have those that will come in and provide another type of service, whether it be like financial literacy classes or working with some life skills types of things. So there's many, many ways. I always tell people how you can contribute to what we're doing is really limited just by your imagination. An area that I would really love to see take off because of the growing need of families is for organizations or small groups of some sort to kind of like adopt a family and kind of come alongside of them, maybe one day just to kind of get them out of the routine and walk downtown with them to get ice cream, or maybe help us just assess like what would be best for us to help them with, and what can we connect them to. So there's so many ways to give. Obviously, homelessness is a really difficult situation. There's a lot of different elements to it, but financially obviously helps us to be able to support a staff that will keep us moving forward. So that's always a great need of ours.
Yeah, and the fact that you've got so many children, I mean, I hope that moves some people to act. I mean,
Absolutely.
They don't deserve to be in that position at all. Well, we've talked about a lot, but I may have missed something that you'd like to mention.
Sure.
Is there anything else that you'd
I just
like
want to mention some of the areas that we've increased our influence in recent year. So we have been for these 15 years an emergency shelter, and we will continue to be that, and we are proud of that work. But one thing we notice is, there is definitely a way to maybe keep someone from ever needing to come to shelter. Or we've talked to some of the people, so to talk about some of the circumstances where people are living in encampments or living on benches. So we have hired someone to be our outreach coordinator. So we go throughout all of Cumberland County, and sometimes we just drive through an area and see if we can see people just kind of, looking without anything. And we begin to work and case manage with them. And but we also partner with agencies like in Mechanicsburg, there's Main Street Laundry. They started a nonprofit, the Clean Sheet Initiative, and we give referrals to people living in areas so they can get their laundry done. Something, to be able to bring humanity to people, and what an amazing thing. So we can give referrals to them. We partner with St. Stephen's Lutheran Church that does an outreach at the Flying J truck stop, and they provide showers and laundry and a meal to everyone that comes out.
Do you provide showers at your?
We do.
Okay.
We absolutely
that's
do.
A biggie, yeah.
An additional place people can get showers that are living what they call rough, like people that are living on the streets. They can go to the Salvation Army Monday through Friday from 9 to 12, and showers are available there as well. And through our outreach efforts, we are working to prevent people from losing their homes. So they give us a call, and we get connected with them. And if there's a way that we can get the last month's rent to keep them from losing their place, it's a lot better for someone to never go to the place of homelessness.
And
so
probably
we do that.
Overall, it's going to cost society less.
Absolutely. It is less expensive to have someone keep their home. We also will work with them to transition into another home if need be. It's kind of in a high demand. We have a lot of phone calls for it throughout Cumberland County. We work in Shippensburg and Enola and Summerdale. We're just all over the place, and we're very, very proud of the work we've been able to do in less than a year. We have seen quite a few people be able to maintain their housing or get housed quickly. There's a lot of people that are living in their vehicles that people don't realize are homeless. And so that we're very proud of. We also began through the Connect to Home program. We are the walk-in site, the live site for Cumberland County, the coordinated entry system. And that is a system that is kind of like trying to take out all the barriers of gaining access to support when you are, in fact, at a place of near homeless or homeless. So if you or someone you know is close to that, or you're seeing someone that's struggling with that, you can encourage them to call 211, and they can get their vulnerability assessment then, or they can come to our site and get it done. I advocate for a live site because it is what's called a vulnerability assessment. But out of that assessment, you gain a score, and out of that score, then it makes you qualified for two types of funding that's only available if you are in fact homeless: the rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing. And based on your numbers, the sooner we get you on the list, the sooner you might be able to get pulled for that. So you may have to eventually come to the shelter and stay, but at least we have another option that we're also working towards. And the goal of that is, as we continue to work as community agencies together, is that we gain enough funding support that people might only have to stay at shelter for a few days till they can transition into a place of their own.
Then you get a little synergy going when you're working with it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's the amazing thing, because truly none of us own the problem of homelessness. None of us own that. But as an individual organization, none of us can accomplish all things. I always say we end homelessness one person at a time. But so does Salvation Army, so does Safe Harbor, so does the Housing Authority, and so does domestic violence, and so do so many other places. But together, together we're reaching many people, and we coordinate and we can communicate with each other and be like, this isn't working out for us here. Maybe you could help us with this person, or maybe you have the expertise more in this way. So we try really hard, because our goal, all of our goals, is to see people in a stable environment and not to be having to live rough on the street life if they do choose not to do that.
Well, that's great. That was some great information, and really, I hope that that people see this and want to help out, because Absolutely. It's such a really important issue. We all kind of have to look out for each other
yes,
in this world. So,
absolutely.
So, well, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, and thank you so much for having me.
I hope you can get it in your schedule to come back and maybe tell us about some of the events you're having. I know you do some fundraisers, but
yes.
Let's keep in touch.
Absolutely.
Thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.